Okay, this one really isn't clickbait, I promise. Welcome to the depths. Hello, welcome to Reading from the Depths. My name is Lecton. Thank you for yet again joining me today. So, last week I released a video that was called What I Can't Stand About BookTube, or the distinction between criticism and complaining. And I'll admit, the title, and especially the thumbnail, was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And so I thought it was only appropriate to today release a video that is what I love about BookTube, or why I think celebrating books is good for you. So I said this isn't clickbait because I will, right at the top, be very genuine about what I like about BookTube. But I'm not going to make a whole video on that because I think all of you already agree with me. And so I'll have to go a little further. What do I love about BookTube? I think it's going to be the same as all of you, that I have learned about new books and new authors that I would never have heard of before. And I've been pushed out of my comfort zone to read things I would never have read if I was on my own. And more importantly, I found a community of people who care about books, who want to talk about books, who open my mind to what books are available and what it means to read together. I mean, I'm 40 years old and I've never done a buddy read before. Yet right now, I'm in the middle of doing 2 buddy reads, and I have another one lined up for the beginning of next year. This is all thanks to BookTube. You know, I read books this year that I definitely would never have read if I hadn't heard other people discussing it, whether it's because it's a genre that I'm not normally comfortable with or an author I hadn't heard of. And I have had incredibly great experiences this year, moving experiences, reading books that I never would have read if it weren't for BookTube. So books, authors, and community are why I love BookTube. Okay, so that is the common answer, and I think everyone will agree with that. But kind of create an analog to last week's video. You know, my emphasis last week was that I think criticism and complaining are different. And the distinction is complaining is all about you. It ceases to be about the book and has to be about you. And all that happens as a result of that is, even if it may feel good in the moment, all it's really doing is inflating your ego, and it is not of any real benefit, short-term or long-term. That's my position. So what would the opposite of that be? And so that's what I was thinking about when I was thinking of this video. And my first thought right away is rejoicing. Some of you may have heard me talk about rejoicing before in my video that was the joy and gratitude book tag, because gratitude and rejoicing are like close cousins, I think. But from the Buddhist perspective, what I mean when I say rejoicing is finding delight or joy in virtue and in the fruits of virtue. So that is to say, when someone does a good deed, someone is kind, someone is benevolent in some way, someone goes out of their way to help someone else, finding joy in that, whether it's you or someone else doing it. And when someone reaps the rewards of those good deeds, when they have success, when they achieve something that they want, when they have some sort of windfall, any sort of happiness, even worldly happiness, when other people experience that, you feel joy. You have a mind of delight and happiness at other people's virtue and other people's successes and their happiness. So other people's happiness and virtue bring you happiness. At first, it has to be an active process. We're not used to it because we're so focused on centering on ourselves. But as you cultivate this practice of rejoicing, then that delight becomes natural, and you develop the natural habit to find your joy intimately linked and connected to other people's well-being and other people's virtuous activity. So virtue and joy become mixed together. Other people's happiness and your own happiness become inseparable in that way. So that is the point of rejoicing, of this mental practice. And so that works when dealing with people. But how would that work for books? And how would that work for BookTube? So thinking about it, the analog that I thought of is celebration. That celebrating books, celebrating writers and authors and writing, and celebrating communities of readers, that is the analog. And so what do I mean by celebration? There is obviously the normal meaning of the word. Cheering someone on from the sideline, you know, hip hip hooray, congratulations, these kind of things. And I mean that, sure. You can celebrate in that way. But I'm going to kind of push the semantic limits of the term a little bit, if you'll indulge me, thinking of this idea, this Buddhist idea of rejoicing. What I mean by celebration is much more active than that. It's proactive. You know, for instance, if I were to say, I'm celebrating you, that doesn't just mean I am happy when you succeed and that I'm cheering on the sidelines, hoping for your success. No, what it means is I am actively working for your success. I am doing everything I can to make sure that you are happy, that you succeed. And in the case that you don't succeed, I am also doing everything I can to be the support you need in that time as well. So it isn't just being happy when you succeed or cheering you on, but it's making your success my priority. It's doing whatever is within my power, and that's going to be different for different people and at different times in your life, but doing whatever is within my power to make sure that you succeed. That is what I mean by celebrating, by being proactive and celebrating other people in that way. So if you celebrate other people like that, by wishing for their success and working for their success, by prioritizing their success and their happiness, what does it mean to celebrate a book? What does it mean to celebrate art or literature? For me, when I think of celebrating books, first, I take that book seriously. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter the genre, the author, it doesn't matter the context of the book. I take that book seriously as having something to say, as being a work of art. It doesn't matter if it was made for mass consumption, if it was made on spec, if it was made just for purely capitalist reasons. I still take it seriously. And I try to hold in my mind a sense of awe when I engage that book or an author or a community of readers. And that sounds naive, right? That sounds Pollyannish. But if you think about it, think of the incredible privilege we have to have access to books the way we do, and to have access to literature and to art in the way we do. It's mind-boggling how much access we have, and we take it for granted. Or I take it for granted. I won't speak for you. It's easy to take for granted because it just seems so ubiquitous. It seems normal to us. But the fact that we have access to entire other worlds, to these transformative things, right? Books are locus of transformation, right? Books are an opportunity to learn something about yourself, to grow, to expand, to be someone different, to be more than you ever thought you could be. Books are the key to so much of that. And we just have countless books at our disposal. I try to hold that recognition, that sense of awe about the power of books, how transformative they are, how writing and art and engaging can totally change your life. Every time I engage a book, every time I interact with a book, every time I develop a relationship with a new book, I try to hold that sense of awe. It doesn't matter how tawdry the book is, how simple the book is. It doesn't matter any of those things, okay? Because this is about me, what I bring to the book. So I take the book seriously and I try to hold it with a sense of awe. And so with that as my baseline, I think what it means to celebrate a book, what I think about a lot is, in my tradition, we're taught that whenever you engage in studying a scripture or a text, or you attend a teaching of some sort, there are certain faults you should try to avoid. And I bring this into all of my reading and every aspect of my life. So the faults we should try to avoid, they talk about, are the 3 faults or errors of a faulty vessel. And by vessel, we mean like a water container or a water pitcher, right? And so the first fault you should try to avoid is make sure you're not like a vessel that is upside down. So if your water pitcher is upside down, it doesn't matter how much water you pour onto it, it's always going to be empty. So in the same way, when you approach anything new in your life, whether it be a book or anything, you shouldn't have a closed mind. You should be open to receiving whatever that is giving you. Don't be like a pitcher that is upside down. Be open, be receptive. And then secondly, you don't want to be like a pitcher or a pot that has a crack in it or has a hole in it. So no matter how much water you pour in, it always is going to leak out. And so that means you should be attentive. You should be mindful. Whenever you're engaging something, especially something new, you should be doing it mindfully, right? It shouldn't be something that's going on in the back of your mind or something on your periphery. You should be paying attention. So that's what it means to avoid the fault of being like a vessel that has a hole in it. And then the last one is avoid being like a pot or a water vessel that is stained with filth or with poison, they sometimes say. So if you have a water pitcher that hasn't been cleaned out, no matter how much crystal clear water you put in, it's going to become polluted by whatever was left in there beforehand. And in the same way, when you're engaging in something new in your life, you should do it with a mind that is trying to not be weighed down by prejudice or by preconceptions, but be totally open and expansive. So this in some way is building off of the first one, very similar to not being like an upside down pot. that you want to not be laden down with your own preconceptions of what a thing is and let that thing show you what it is. Okay? So these are the three faults we try to avoid. You don't want to be like a pot that is upside down, one that has a crack in it, or one that is stained with filth. You want to be open-minded and receptive. You want to be paying attention and be aware, and you don't want to have your preconceptions tainting whatever it is you're engaging with. Now, that doesn't mean don't be skeptical. It doesn't mean that you have to accept everything at face value. What it means is you go with a mind that is open and a mind that wants to find joy. A mind that wants to learn, wants to grow. Whenever I read a book, I go into that book wanting to enjoy myself, and I want to enjoy that book, right? So whenever I read, I'm always thinking, what is in this book that brings me joy? And what is something about this book that is letting me learn something new about myself or about the world? Ideally, both. I'm not gaslighting myself. I don't enjoy every single book I read, but even in books that I don't enjoy, I can find moments of joy in them, and I can find moments of growth, moments of understanding something. It's not always a revelation or a bombshell, but I can find something that deepens my understanding of who I am in the world. And I can find something that makes me joyful or happy, some sort of connection with the author or the text, or just a secondary thing that out of my life experience came to my mind as a result of reading that text. So I engage with text in such a way, and books in such a way, that is leading with joy, and is leading with the intention to find some sort of personal growth. Doesn't matter what the book is. That's what I'm leading with. And I'm doing it in such a way that I'm trying to stay open and receptive. And the reason I think this is beneficial isn't just because it changes the way you read a text, but it changes the way you engage with text and also with the creators of those texts and the community of readers. When you stop focusing on yourself as the center, as that which everything else orbits around, then you leave space to actually be present for other people. You leave space and you create a habit of prioritizing others' happiness and recognizing that your true happiness is going to come from being of service to others and helping others succeed. That's what it means to rejoice in others. That's what it means to celebrate others. And so when I think of celebrating books, which is the opposite of complaining about books, when I think of celebrating books, I think of finding joy in everything I read. And I think of learning something new about myself in everything I read. And I think of taking that way of being and applying it not just to books, but to everything I do in my life. So that is what I mean when I say celebrate books. And that'll make your whole life better. It's good for you to celebrate books. It's good for you to celebrate writing, creativity. It's good for you to celebrate community, people coming together to share something that they care about. It's good for you to work for others in such a way that your hobby, your passion, your joy for reading and for discussing literature can create something more than itself, that can take you out of the center and instead let you be dedicated to others in a way that makes everyone more fulfilled. That is how I celebrate books. And I know not everyone is going to be the same as me. I know not everyone is going to agree with that kind of sentimentality. But I urge you to at least try a little bit to celebrate literature, celebrate books, celebrate book communities in whatever way you find meaningful. And when you have a thought that starts sliding into complaining about books, just think, instead of complaining, how can I celebrate this book? Even if this book is not one that I enjoyed, this is a book I'm DNFing. How can I still celebrate this book? What is there in this? The creation of this book, the reception of this book, the community of people that care about this book. What is there in this that I can celebrate? That is what I want you to ask yourselves. And that's what I ask myself every time I read a book. So that's all I have to say. I would love to know how you celebrate books. How do you celebrate authors and writing? How do you celebrate each other? Please share it down in the comments. But for now, thank you for spending some time with me today. I appreciate you and I celebrate you. Be kind to yourselves, take care of each other, and go slowly.